There is a very significant passage found in Proverbs 14 and verse 12, which says, "There is a way that seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death." Now that indicates that a man can be altogether persuaded that what he believes and practices in religion is acceptable to God and will cause him to be saved eternally. Whereas the truth of the matter is, he's simply deceived. You know, we hear all kinds of things about God and about religion. For instance, there are people who are called atheists. Now, an atheist is a person who holds that he knows that God does not exist. He holds, there's no doubt about it, that he actually has the fact which prove that God does not exist. On the other hand, there are those who call themselves agnostics. Now, they claim that there is some evidence for and some evidence against the existence of God, but that no man can really know which one is right. Some people say there is evidence in favor of God, and that evidence is more probable than the evidence against the existence of God. In other words, they're saying it's more probable that God exists than that he does not. While there are other people who say that it's more probable that he does not exist than that he does. But now today I want to talk about something that is a little more prevalent in our society at least. And that is the idea that one is saved, he's acceptable to God, simply upon the basis that he's sincere in his religion. We look in our nation and we see more than 300 denominations. These people practice different things. They hold to different doctrines, many of which are contradictory not only of their own doctrines, but of the doctrines of other people. And yet the general sentiment is, among our society, is that all of these people are pleasing to God upon the simple basis that they are sincere. In other words, they hold if one is sincere in religion, then he will be saved. He'll be saved by Jesus Christ. The basic idea behind this whole thing is that truth is really not important at all. That what is important, and it is the one and only thing that's important, is that one is sincere. Now, as we look at this matter, I want to ask the question, or to point out the fact that many people accept this idea that being sincere is sufficient, that it's all that's really needed in religion. Here we have a man behind a lectern, he's preaching, and he's saying to his audience, just be sincere and you will be sincere and you will be saved. I sometimes have pointed out to people what the Bible teaches about certain things, and their response is, but the people who believe that are sincere. Now let me emphasize that no one can be pleasing to God if he is not sincere. There are many places in the Bible which strongly condemn hypocrisy. To be a hypocrite is to pretend to be something but not really be that. To be a hypocrite in religion is to pretend to really love God and the Lord Jesus Christ, but not do so. It's just like acting. A person may act as if he were the King Henry VIII, but he knows well and good that he is not. He's just playing a part. Now, we know in religion people accept this. Many people do. But the question is, does God accept it? And I want to affirm here in no unequivocal terms that God does not accept it. Now, I want to try to persuade you to see that the Bible teaches that just being sincere, while sincerity is necessary, you can't be saved without it, it is not sufficient. So, to help us to see that point, I want to raise the question, who will accept the idea that sincerity alone is sufficient in realms other than religion? For instance, how many of us, if we go to a medical doctor, if we go to a physician, will accept the idea that just being sincere is sufficient? Now we have the little cartoon on the chart, and here we have the doctor saying to the patient, were you sincere when you swallowed this poison? You see, here's the fellow who's very ill. He swallowed poison. The doctor's holding the bottle in which it's contained. Here we have the patient making a mistake. And the patient says, yes, I sincerely thought that it was a vitamin pill. Now, what sort of reaction will the doctor make to that? Will he say, oh, well, if you're sincere, then everything's okay? Well, we've drawn the cartoon here as if he would say that. Here we have the doctor saying, well, if you were sincere when you swallowed that poison thinking it was a vitamin pill, then the poison will not hurt you. And we have the patient saying, I understand, doctor. Here he is on the way to death, and the doctor telling him that everything's okay. There isn't anybody in the world, I'm sure, no one in his right mind who is listening to me at this moment who would accept that idea, that the sincerity of the patient, the man who swallowed the poison, that sincerity would change the poison into a vitamin pill. It simply won't do it, and we all know it. Now let's look a little further. Now we want to look at the point when the doctor makes a wrong diagnosis. I have great respect for physicians. I appreciate very much the work they do. But I've been to physicians when they made a wrong diagnosis of my case. And I've been with other people, and I know about such situations where doctors made the wrong diagnosis. And so here we have this fellow, he's in bed and he's sick, and he says, Doctor, if you were sincere when you made that diagnosis, I know I will be okay. And we have the doctor saying, yes, sincere doctors make the diagnosis acceptable. Why, there isn't anybody that believes that. That's just a cartoon. That doesn't happen. There are no patients, unless they're simply insane, who believe that a doctor being sincere will change a wrong diagnosis into a right one. Suppose this man has a malignancy, and the doctor says, well, I think you have a bad cold, and he gives him the medicine for that. Does his sincerity, does the sincerity of this doctor change his wrong diagnosis into a right one? Why, we know that it won't do it. Sincerity won't do that. What about pharmacists? Suppose you've been to a doctor and he gives you a prescription and you take it to the pharmacist. And we have here this fellow, now he's talking to the pharmacist, and he says, it really makes no difference how you fill this prescription for my doctor so long as you're sincere. And then we have the pharmacist saying, yes, sincerity is all that matters. That's not so. There are not any people, there are not any patients who take prescriptions to pharmacists who think it doesn't matter what he puts in the bottle. He could put several ingredients in that bottle that would be absolutely poisonous and kill you within a few moments. And his being sincere will not change that. We all know that. What about butchers? Here's a fellow goes to the butcher. Here he is at the meat market, and he says to the butchers, he's wrapped up a package of meat here, and he says, say, butcher, is that dog meat you're giving me? And the butcher says, well, it doesn't matter. I'm sincere in what I'm doing. Would you believe that? If you had some suspicion that a certain butcher shop was dealing out dog meat instead of beef, would you simply say, well, if he's sincere, then it'll turn that dog meat into beef? And you ask the butcher, well, are you sincere? And he says, yes, so you just take his word and say, well, okay, I'll just take it. I know that it would, even if it were dog meat at the beginning, that his sincerity would turn it into beef. You don't believe that. I don't believe it. You can't find any sane person that believes it. Now we have here a man who's a criminal. He's been involved in a lot of crime. And we want to see about the relationship of lawyers and sincerity. And so here this man who is a hardened criminal, and he's talking about a particular circumstance, and he asks the lawyer, did I violate the law? And the lawyer says, in our cartoon, of course, well, if you were sincere in what you did, it really doesn't matter. Well, a man that would say that wouldn't be worthy of the name lawyer.